My name is David Eisminger. I'm the founder and CEO of Upheaval, the company behind Ironweave. And there is a little bit of audience participation in this part of the demo, but don't worry, you can do it all in your head. So imagine for a moment a blockchain with unmatched scale, incredible scale, over 1 million transactions per second, all data on chain. Now imagine that being an ultra-secure blockchain down to the block level, where every block is encrypted with its own set of unique encryption keys. Now imagine that same blockchain is extremely flexible. You can have blocks as small as 100 bytes. You can have blocks as large as megabytes. So we imagined this blockchain, and then we built it. So our blockchain is Ironweave, and it's a fundamental shift, and it's a novel and different approach to blockchain and the blockchain platform. Existing blockchains place one block at a time, one on top of the other, for what we call a monolithic blockchain, a single collection of blocks, one after the other. In Ironweave, there is an unlimited number of interacting chains. And whenever an interaction occurs between two or more chains, a shared block is created and placed on each chain. That shared block has a hash from the previous chain, so there are at least 2 hashes in each block. It's encrypted, and only the participants have access to that data. You can share that data if you want. You can not share it if you want. You can have your own private walled gardens within Ironweave, but there is no limit to the scale or security in Ironweave. So what does this mean? It means that, let's say you have 2 chains, chains A and B, that are participating in a digital interaction. They create a shared block that is placed on each chain, and then they kind of go about their business. Now, simultaneously, let's say there's blocks X, Y, and Z, or chains X, Y, and Z, and they are engaged in a digital interaction, and they're creating a block, and that block is placed on each of their chains. A and B can have that digital interaction. X, Y, and Z can have that digital interaction simultaneously. The blocks can be created at the same time. So parallel block creation, and blocks A and B have no idea that X, Y, and Z even exist, and they can't access that data. Blocks X, Y, or chains X, Y, and Z have no idea that A and B exist, or that there's any sort of interaction going on, or any blocks being created, or any data being put onto the Ironweave fabric. This architecture, this shared block architecture, results in the ability for massive scale. We can scale horizontally because we are not limited to a single monolithic block. We can have exceptional security because you can decide whether you want to share your data or whether you don't. Let's say you're a government agency and you need to have inter-agency communication, but you also have to have information that is kept within your agency. You can have some chains that are only accessible within the agency. You can have an edge chain for communicating with your other agency or agencies. And you can have hundreds or thousands of chains, however many you need, for whatever process you need. Think government regulation, think credentials, think if you're the VA, maybe you're interested in patient records, or maybe you're interested in a given doctor and the sort of interactions that they've had throughout time. It has all the benefits of other blockchains, which is immutability, the hashing function that I mentioned, but Ironweave doesn't care what kind of data you're creating, using, sharing, building. You can use little IoT updates. You can share Form 72A. You can ensure that that's automatically properly filled out, for example, and that it's submitted to the correct agency, and then all of a sudden your reporting becomes automated. You as a reporter, you as the agency have access to that information, and only you. And then all of the ambiguity, all of the other things that may come with a non-immutable mechanism by which you would share that information or regulate that particular agency can go away. So let's take a look at what that looks like. So we created something that we call WeaveMark during the process of developing Ironweave. And we created this in order to stress test Ironweave during the development cycle. We, many very late nights staring at Jaeger traces, for anyone who's in the development side of things, to see exactly how many cycles that particular call took, or why it took 7 milliseconds when it should have taken 3. So and the reasoning behind that is because A, we wanted to make it as absolutely performant as possible, but B, we wanted to make it as efficient as possible. We're here at the Sustainability Conference, right? We use consensus mechanisms that don't require vast amounts of energy. We have the ability to finalize blocks in under 50 milliseconds. So let's take a look. So let's start with the closest thing that Ironweave has to what a monolithic blockchain might look like. On the left here, you have the initiators and the participants. There's the concept of a chain initiating a block creation, and then whoever is participating in it. So when we start, what we're going to see is when I click this button and start, what you're going to see on the right is blocks being created in real time. Each of those blocks is encrypted with its own set of encryption keys. Each of those blocks is being placed on each of the participant chains while it's happening, and that data is accessible only to the participants. But like I said, we created WeaveMark in order to test and stress test Ironweave. So when I increase the threads on this, and that's just a computer thread, and essentially what that's doing is that is hitting that chain pair simultaneously with that many threads. So imagine you have a highly used process in your business or in your agency, and people are hitting it at the same time, and it needs to be performant. Well, what we're going to see is that just like in Ironweave, you can have simultaneous blocks being created among various participants. Also in Ironweave, each chain can burst out to create simultaneous blocks in order to meet the performance requirements. So what you saw there is a single pair automatically fanning out into bursts and enabling the performance requirements for that high load chain to meet those requirements, and that it automatically merges when it's done. But I mentioned that this can happen simultaneously, right? That there can be parallel block creation, and Ironweave just kind of handles it. So now what we're going to do, I'm going to select a handful of initiators and a handful of participants, and what Ironweave is going to do is it's going to grab initiators, it's going to grab participants, and automatically start creating blocks among them randomly just to see what happens. And what we're going to see is that Ironweave doesn't care. It just continues to do what it's going to do and creates those random blocks and connects and interacts with those simultaneously. So what does that mean in terms of performance? Well, what we're going to see is that for example, financial technology or other kind of high use, high need, high load environments, what we're seeing is that as Ironweave continues to create these blocks, what you're seeing here is we have a value right here of the transactions per second. So in this particular case, where we have multiple threads hitting against this chain pair simultaneously, right now we're at about 840,000 transactions per second. Now, the speed with which you're going to be able to do this is going to be dependent on your internet connection, for example, of course. So there are all sorts of things that can affect the performance. But as this is finishing up, imagine what you could do or what could be done with a blockchain that can scale to whatever need that you need, that can be secure for whether it's communications, whether it's data exchange, whether it's transactions, whether it's regulatory compliance, whether it's healthcare requirements, whatever it is that you happen to be doing, you need not only speed and scalability, but you need security. And then you need privacy, because this world needs more privacy than it has today. So in the end, what I would say is, would you rather have a monolithic blockchain, or would you rather have a multidimensional blockchain where you can assure that you have scalability and that you don't have to contend with others for the resources, where when you need to ensure that your business, your government agency, whatever it is that your interactions have, that the resources available are going to be there, and that you can ensure that only you and the folks with whom you want to share that data have access to it, then I would just suggest that you consider Ironweave. So we're going to be here for the whole conference, and we're especially going to look forward to seeing you at the Friday night reception, the innovation reception. So ask us questions. Come meet with us, come talk with us. We'd love to hear what you're trying to do, what you're trying to solve. There are technologies. Blockchain is a technology, and then there are solutions. So on our website, you'll see how we differentiate between those. Blockchain is a technology, security is an element of technology, but when you put those technologies together in special ways, what you find is you find solutions. So when you have scalability plus guaranteed provenance plus security and privacy, you all of a sudden have the capability to have a credentials system, and that you can guarantee provenance. So that can solve for fraud issues, for counterfeiting, for all sorts of various things that are difficult to achieve unless you have scalability and security and flexibility. Maybe you're a pipeline company or a water company, and you need to have just little blocks because the valves don't take up that many blocks, according to that CSV. If that's the case, Ironweave is your solution, because we can have blocks of any size, little, created in real time with an architecture that uses event-driven, it's an event-driven architecture rather than a polling architecture, which means when something happens, it can immediately create a block because that event happened, rather than saying, oh, did this happen? No. Did this happen? No. So the analytics, the AI, the underlying AI system that you can run on Ironweave, and that it is hardwired to create and provide, is a platform and a fabric that enables you to do your own thing in a private walled garden, interact with the world at scale, both or either. So thanks for your time. Appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed the demonstration, and look forward to seeing you at the rest of the conference.